Hello, welcome to my channel once again. I am, of course, Azura, and today I would like to talk to you about a very underground sort of movie company that's been making some really good films throughout the years, but nobody seems to be giving it credit. Ever. It's not a thing. I'm kidding, of course, I'm talking about Pixar movies today. So I just saw that new Pixar movie. What's it called? Soul. And it reminded me why I love Pixar so much. It had just so much life and energy to it, and I thought that it was a good time to rank these movies. Now I gotta give a disclaimer, it's not very objective. A lot of the time it's mostly just based on my own personal experience and what I like about movies, which is different for everyone. So please don't get mad at me because I have some hot takes. So stay tuned for that, but before that we gotta have some hot tea. So grab a refreshment and let's dive right in. Bug's Life is a hard one for me because I never really watched it when I was growing up. I don't know why, but I somehow avoided it at all costs. Maybe I just didn't like ants, I don't know. But I revisited it for you guys, and turns out this isn't the best movie. I'll be honest, I understand that people have nostalgia towards it, but I don't care about ants. And I never will. And none of y'all are gonna convince me. I think that the story is generic, and I'm kind of tired before it even starts. And I just didn't have fun at all. I turned it off halfway through and then forced myself to go through with the rest of it. So it's a no for me. Sorry. Let's move on. Cars 2 is an interesting one because it is the most odd movie when you put it next to its predecessors. Well, not predecessors, more like the first movie. It's a spy movie for some reason, and it focuses a lot on the character Maida, who I loved, by the way, in the first one. And it's just so god-awful. I cannot get through this movie once, let alone ever thinking about seeing it again. It's predictable, and it's just like, why? Why is it a spy movie? Why are we doing this? Why is the queen there? And why is she a car? What is cars? I don't understand. Yeah, okay, there we go. It's just, there's no creativity. I understand that they wanted to make Maida, the central character, but still, if you're gonna be cars, be cars. Don't be James Bond for no reason. Don't want to spend too much time on the movies that I don't like because I want this video to be nice and positive. A nice thing to lift you up out of corona depression. So at the number 21 spot we have Monsters University. Now there's nothing particularly wrong with Monsters University. Oh my god. I need to tape this to me or okay, fine. It's just why? Again, a lot of the movies at the bottom of this list, it's just gonna be me asking the question, why does this movie exist? And obviously we know the answer, it's money, but I don't know if you could milk the Monster Inc. universe that far. I don't know, I just kinda hate prequels in general, so I hated this film. But I like the side characters. I know that people say that they're forgettable, but I actually quite like them. And I don't understand why we decided Monsters Inc., Harry Potter Goblet of Fire, and University. Let's do it, guys. That's literally just what this movie is. For some reason, it's a tournament. It's very confusing to watch. It doesn't really bring me any feelings, but I can appreciate it for what it is. It's alright. I'm sure that any kid would enjoy this. Now, Cars is an interesting one because I realized when I was watching it that I actually like this movie. I don't know why, but there's something kind of charming about it. Maybe that's the American part of me. A very American film. I like sports movies. I just do. But it also feels super offbeat for Pixar in general. It's like, what else can we make alive? We've done toys, we've done fish, we've done rats. You know what? I have an epiphany. We're gonna do it with cars. And cars just aren't that interesting to watch, and it just brings up so many questions. Like, you see like the tiny little flying cars and you're like, is everything cars? What is going on? And I don't know, that's just a little too much for my little brain to handle. But all in all, if you just take away the cars, it's a Hallmark sports movie. Young guy who's kind of self-obsessed goes back to his hometown, or in this case just a random town, and like learns the value of living and hard work, and then he falls in love. So it's just that, and if you're not gonna like that, then you won't like this movie. But I'm a bit of a softie, so when I first came out of the cinema, I was actually really disappointed in this film. It was not what I was expecting it to be. I thought it was going to be a lot more concise, and honestly, I didn't really like that the conflict was just kind of, you know, them trying to find each other. They just got lost and then they had to do that again, which is, I guess, Finding Nemo, but Finding Nemo's conflict had more to do with like his feelings, like the emotional core of the movie, whereas this one feels a little bit off. And I care about Dory, but it's really hard to watch this after knowing all about the Ellen DeGeneres controversy. And you know, I love Dory. I love her so much, but I seriously think that this doesn't make Finding Nemo any better, which is kind of what you want to do with a sequel, well, at least with a prequel, to add, well, is it a prequel? I guess it's a sequel. I feel like you should add more to the world, and it's just not my thing. It's just not my thing. I like the side characters. I like that damn octopus and them whales. I like them a lot, but it's just not my thing. I'm sorry. We have Cars 3. Cars 3 is a really nice ending to end the series of Cars movies, which may be why I like it. I just don't understand the Cars universe. I'm sorry to all those diehard Cars fans, but it's just like, who decided this? Who decided this was a good idea? It's actually a really good movie, and I do have to give credit to all of the Cars movies in that they look really cool. For 2006, Cars looks really good. You just get to drive along like the countryside. Is it countryside? I don't, like the sand and stuff. I don't know. I'm a simpleton. It just does a sports movie. It knows what it is, and it knows what the first one did well. Cars 3, I think, is the best at doing this, and that's why I put it at, like, my favorite Cars movie, whereas Cars 2 is just a spy movie for some reason, and it just doesn't make any sense, really. Cars 3 knows what it is, gets the job done, and just ends the series, so I like it. I like it a lot. Now this one's a little bit more controversial. I like this movie, I really do, but I wish that the conflict, I keep talking about this, but the conflict is so just, oh my gosh, we fell out a window accidentally, and therefore this child is having a mental crisis because we lost some of the emotions. I wish that the conflict was driven more by emotions, if that makes sense. Like maybe, what's her name, Happy? No, Joy. There it is, that sounds more like a name. Joy just like pushed sadness away so deep that she had to go get her again. That would have been interesting, but it's quite frustrating to just watch our characters run around and that the only reason why she is feeling these feelings is because they fell out a window. It's just completely accidental, and that kind of conflict annoys me. But it's pretty interesting to see the world. It's designed very well, but I don't entirely I can't get myself into the story because it doesn't seem as believable as I would like it to be. And as Kirsten Runquist said in his video, I'll try and put it here, it just is trying so hard to be a Pixar movie. It's trying so hard to make you cry, to make you feel all the feels, when really Pixar's just able to do that with a simple story. And it doesn't have a lot of an emotional sort of ground, if that makes sense. The emotions are all over the place and we don't really know what the core of the movie is. It's kind of hard for me to latch on to this type of movie. But Bobo, we miss you very much. Is his name Bobo? Boo-boo? Bobo? Correct me in the comments if you wish. It's just the logic brings up a lot of questions, and I don't like to think when I'm watching this movie. I don't like to think about every single aspect of the world. The world should be good enough so that it just is simplified and you can just go into it and be okay with that. But Inside Out makes me question everything, and it's designed really well. I love everything about the design and watching these characters, but I kind of wish that we also knew more about... I wish we knew more about Blonde Girl, who was actually controlling the body, so that we had more of an emotional sort of connection to her, in the same way that Andy from Toy Story we had a connection with. It felt like she was very underused, oddly. And it would have been nice to have a little bit more juxtaposition with inside her head and the actual outside world. Also, this girl has never felt two emotions before at once until she's like, what, 14, 13? I forget how old she is. I really need to look this stuff up. I like Onward. It's not because I'm a Tom Holland stan? But I really like the story. I think that the ending is one of my favorites out of Pixar history. But stay tuned for that. I have a favorite. I might do another video just ranking all my favorite endings. But this one is pretty interesting. I just like seeing these brothers kind of bond and sacrifice stuff for each other and just learn to be really cool people. And I like them by the end. I love when characters start off as someone who you probably wouldn't like and then just get more and more, interesting. I like that a lot. So, yeah, I like Onward. I like how beautiful it is. I like how the animation style has really progressed from where Pixar was, even 5 years ago. It just looks amazing. It really does. I feel like I could step into that world and just be amazed. The Good Dinosaur is good, guys. You have to watch it. It's fun. I like cute small dinosaurs going on adventures in faraway lands. Still, this movie really holds up. I like watching all of these characters just do something, and it's just a really good coming of age film. I think that a lot of people don't like this because it's really simple. It's quite a simple story, and it can be kind of hard to go into a Pixar movie without knowing the sort of wacky twist that happens, like in Up. There's a house with balloons on it, or in Ratatouille, it's a rat controlling a person's brain or something. I don't even know how that works. I understand why people didn't go see this movie, but it's just a Land Before Time movie. And that's okay. I'm glad that Pixar made a Land Before Time movie. It is the sequel / crossover that we deserve. But I like coming of age films, especially when they're done with cute dinosaurs and nice plot lines. So I like this movie. Now, before you come at me with your pitchforks, I'm sorry, but I don't like watching this movie. Toy Story has so much cultural significance in film history, but I don't think that means that it deserves the #1 spot or even close to that, just because as a movie, it kind of relies a lot on the novelty of sort of toys coming to life, like as a core concept, in the same way that a lot of Pixar films do. And when you've already kind of gone past that and moved on, it's really hard to rewatch this movie. I didn't have fun, really. It's interesting enough with the buzz storyline, but I think that it's just sort of below average. I'm sorry. The animation was amazing for the time, but it's really hard to look at now, especially after watching the more recent sequels from Toy Story, specifically Toy Story 4, which looks incredible. And then going back to this, it can be kind of frustrating. And I think that Pixar just got better at writing as time went on. But I do acknowledge that this movie really did create a lot of beautiful things, and that we wouldn't have animation as good as we do without the help of Toy Story. So it's okay. It's alright. Monsters Inc. is a great movie. I love Monsters Inc. so much because I love Billy Crystal so much. I don't know why. I just do. It's just a thing. But I think that what really carries this movie along is the three main characters, including the child, who isn't really a character. Well, she is a character, but she doesn't really do much. But I know that everyone says they're like the best duo, Sully and Mike. But I think that it's really Sully, Mike, and Boo. I think that they just work really well together as a whole unit. And this movie has my favorite ending ever. It's the most emotionally charged. It's great. It is amazing. You guys have to watch this movie again. It just really brings back a lot of things. Whereas with other movies that I rewatched just for this video, Monsters Inc. was one that I thought I got a lot out of the second time, and I just love watching them just be themselves, all three of the main characters. I will say that the plot is not the best. I don't really like the way that it's paced, but the jokes are great. And just the concept itself of the doors. Like, I love when Pixar sort of tries to answer questions that kids might have. Like, what's the monster behind the door? And then you make a whole movie about that. That's awesome. That's what Toy Story did as well. And that's also another reason why I love Toy Story in general. It's just brought to life here, and I like it a lot. Next we have Finding Nemo. I had to put this up pretty high because I'm an Aussie girl, but Finding Nemo is a classic that really holds up today. I think I could watch this movie over and over again and I would never complain. It just has aged like fine wine. The animation style is incredible. I love just watching these characters just do stuff together, especially Nemo and Dory. I love those characters a lot. It's just really fun to watch this movie again and again because the plot is really well paced, but it doesn't feel like it's sort of glossing over any details. It's a simple story, and I think that anyone, anywhere could just watch this movie and have a great time. We've kind of gotten to the point in the Pixar history sort of thing where most of the stuff beyond here is pretty much like great, but it's just they're kind of all on the same level because Pixar is just so good. It was so hard to make this list because it's really hard to put Pixar in different categories when all of these movies are completely different. They are really pushing a lot of boundaries and interesting genres. It's kind of crazy. Toy Story 3 is a good movie, don't get me wrong, but I just felt a little underwhelmed at the loss of Andy. I kind of wish that the entire movie was just about that, just about watching Andy go to college and seeing how he would have to leave his toys behind. The daycare plot didn't feel as relevant to that as it probably should have, but if we just look at that on its own, it's a pretty great story, being able to see them escape and stuff, but I just kind of wish that it was more emotionally relevant to Andy's goodbye. Despite the fact that it's one of the best endings of the entire Pixar canon, I just was a little disappointed with a lot of the concepts that they could have explored more. When I first saw Coco, I loved it. Everyone loved it because the visuals were amazing, the music was great, but I said to myself, I don't really want to see that movie again because Most of the movie revolves around the plot of you not knowing something until the end, and I don't like films like that. I don't like films where you have a piece of knowledge and then you watch it again and the movie assumes that you don't know that. That's like a really complicated way of saying it, but it can be really frustrating to rewatch this movie, knowing all of the twists and turns, because when the movie makes them seem super important, you just are kind of underwhelmed. But I love the message about death, about life, about family. That was amazing. And I think that this really gets across all of the sort of concepts that it's trying to throw at you. Unlike a lot of these films, it's just a great Pixar movie. It has that Pixar spark, if you know what I mean. Baby otters will curl up on their mother's chest while she floats on her back to sleep on water. When sleeping, otters will wrap themselves in seaweed and float together as a group. This group otters call a raft. Very cute. Whilst a group of otters on land are generally known as a romp. That fun fact was from Ultimate Luxury Cruising and Adventures. I want to go on an adventure so bad. At the number 9 spot, we are in the top 10 people. We have Incredibles 2. Incredibles 2 is so well designed, and the pacing is just so good. I love how this movie keeps you intrigued all the time. It's really hard to convince yourself to stop watching it because it's just so much fun to watch. I love mature family movies like this that kind of push the boundaries of what it means to be a family and how it functions. And I just like watching Jack fight some bloody squirrels or possums, or what is it? It's a freaking raccoon fighting a raccoon. That was a fun scene. I just really like this movie in general. I know that we don't really care about the side characters and some of the plot aspects feel a little odd, but not only is this movie incredible, it looks incredible. I love the design of The Incredibles. It looks very 60s. I like it. But I love the most how Pixar just kind of let the production for this movie go on for this long. Like, it took them 10 years, and they've been trolling us for those entire 10 years. And when it came, and you just sit in the theater and you realize that it's just gonna pick up exactly where it left off from the other movie, it's really exciting because you get the same feeling that you got when you first saw the original Incredibles, and I just think that that's an amazing thing. It was able to tap into nostalgia but also create a new story that was really fun to watch. It just feels like a great video game where you're so into it and you just want to get lost in the story itself. It builds on the Incredibles universe and I really like it for that. But then again, some of the odd characters and the odd plot points kind of bring it down a lot, but it definitely wasn't a disappointment for me. I think that it really just needed a little bit of tweaking, but ultimately it's a great film. Soul is an interesting one for me because when I watched it, it wasn't anything like I've seen Pixar do before. I kind of have gotten used to watching films like Onward and Inside Out kind of just continue the Pixar story, if that makes sense, and it just keeps going forever. But Soul really felt like a new movie, like a new sort of direction that Pixar is going in. And that was exciting to watch. It was exciting to see how the story was progressing. And it was just such a thoughtful movie with so much heart. I wanted to cry in this movie, but I don't know, my tear ducts are broken. I kind of wish that Soul had a more thoughtful collection of side characters. I wish that maybe the barber had a wife or something who was pregnant, that he could have a reason to go back to Earth and look after 22 in that baby's form. I feel like that would have been really interesting rather than leaving 22's story sort of half-baked. I also wish that we found out what the actual trait of their sort of round thingos was, the last trait. I feel like that would have brought a more meaningful ending to it all, if that makes sense. And ultimately, I just think that the ending was really weird. I don't know if him going back to Earth was the best idea. If anything, I thought that he would be a part of the system itself. caring for the new people who are going back to Earth, or maybe even helping the Jerrys bring a more human aspect to what they're doing. But ultimately, it's just kind of a hard movie to not like, if that makes sense, because every scene is just so much fun to watch. I love the idea that we're always working for something, but we have no idea what it is after we get it. And it's interesting to look at some of the most joyful aspects of life being explored in this movie. I wish that the concepts were a bit more thought out through other characters, like maybe we saw more time with him, spending time with more of his students and getting to know them and their interesting personalities. But ultimately, it's a pretty great movie. I just don't like that there's a lot of wasted potential there. Up is an interesting one because I don't know why, but I just really like this movie. It's not just the first scene or a couple of scenes, it's the entire thing. I don't know why, but it's just so weird that it works. It works so well, and I like all of the characters, even the villain. I think that this is one of Pixar's best villains. There's a lot that could be worked on this movie, but ultimately, I think that it's just a classic, and I like it a lot. Just a fun story, and I like it a lot. Toy Story 2. I really like Toy Story 2 because it's just a good adventure movie. It just has a very simple plotline that is easy to follow, and it's so much fun to see how everything unfolds. Plus, I love being able to introduce new characters in a fun and cohesive way, and they just did it so creatively here. Every single new character that's introduced is interesting and dynamic, and I just love that. I love Jessie, and I love everyone else who's involved. Toy Story 4 is the best Toy Story movie in my opinion. And there's a couple reasons for this, mainly because it's just a great movie on its own. It is well paced, it's just the best, it might be the best ending movie of any series that I've seen. It just ends the Toy Story story so well. I just love to watch Woody go through all of these things. It feels like you're watching Captain America just lose his spark and having to move on to a new adventure, and that's really interesting to see Woody do. I love Woody so much. He's one of my favorite characters, and it's great to see him reunited with Bo and finding a new purpose. I love the idea of a kid making a toy and them not wanting to be a toy. I feel like that was really well explored. And the writing is just so well put together. I like just watching these characters talk to one another. The themes and the ideas that are presented here are presented so well, and I love it so much. Ratatouille, I think objectively, is the best Pixar movie. I have to be honest. It is so well paced, and it's a great movie that unpacks a lot of really complicated ideas that we can all relate to. However, it's not my favorite. I don't know why. It just isn't. I think that I have to be in a specific mood to watch this movie. But every single time I do, I love it. I love it because it's just such an interesting story. I love the characters. I love Remy so much. How did they make me care so much about a rat? But it's just the Pixar magic at its best, I believe. I want to go on the Ratatouille ride, like right now. In the same way that I'm thankful to the Cars series for just giving us Cars Land at Disney World LA. I think that ride is probably one of my favorite rides of all time. What am I even talking about? So I love just being in Radiator Springs. It's kind of funny to me. But I think that Ratatouille universally will always bring the member of an audience away with some sort of idea to think about. Whether it's about the idea of creation and creating, what they love, food, just in general, rats. There's always something interesting to take away from Ratatouille. It's just not my favorite. The Incredibles is a great movie. This movie started a new era for comedy animation. I love watching it over and over again. I used to do it all the time when I was a kid because it's just such a fun idea to watch these superheroes have to be parents and live in a middle-class house trying to keep up their day-to-day practices without getting bored and keep up a 9-to-5 job. That's pretty interesting to watch, especially when these characters are so funny and so fun to see them interact. I love the kids and how they come into their own power. I love the baby, I love the villain, I love the entire movie so much. I just like superhero movies in general, so this is one of my favorite superhero movies, I would say ever, just because it's so funny and it's so fun to watch. I just love it. I love it. Now, this one's a little bit controversial. I'm crazy and I absolutely love Brave. Brave is a great movie. I don't care what anyone says, but this was my comfort movie when I was a kid. I love watching this redhead girl turn her mother into a bear and then ride off into the wilderness on a horse. I just love it. I love it so much. I love the mystical element. I love all of the jokes. I laugh out loud every single time I watch this movie. I just like watching Merida just go through all of these adventures, especially with her mother. It's pretty interesting to see how their relationship pans out. It's very similar to Finding Nemo, but it's done in, I would say, a more concise way, and I just love the mystical element, and it's just something completely new for Pixar. And it's also one of my favorite, just like visually, it's so cool to see her hair bouncing around in the wind, and just to know how much effort was put into every single part of this movie. I do really care about it, and I don't care what you think, I'm sorry, but I just love Brave a lot. Y'all need to stop sleeping on Brave. You should be sleeping on beds, not Brave. Jeez. Rewatch this movie. It's actually pretty good. I have fun watching it every single time. Thank you. I'm done. At the number one spot, we have Wally. Now, I didn't know when I started watching these movies that Wally was going to be number one. At first, I always thought that Ratatouille was going to be my number one spot because of just how many ideas it presents and how detailed it is. But I'll be honest, that's not always what I look for in a movie. I have to be in a very specific mood to watch Ratatouille. But I think that Wall-E is the kind of movie that everyone will like, in the same way that Guardians of the Galaxy is a movie that everyone will like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe canon. But I think that the reason why I love Wall-E so much is just because of the way that it uses sort of empathy as a center for its story. Emotionally, it's very interesting to watch this robot who we don't know and is on a crazy planet just roll around and try and make life out of this dead planet. It's interesting to see how he makes something out of nothing, and I just love rewatching Wall-E over and over again. I love the visuals, I love the meaning behind the story. I feel like no matter what, it just will always be relevant, even if somehow we pull the environment together, somehow we pull everything together. I feel like Wall-E will still be relevant to humanity because it is a story about empathy and being able to care about stuff, and that's interesting to watch for me at least. I also love how a lot of the time Wall-E is trying to find out what is worth saving. And I think that it's pretty interesting how by the end you just kind of have this emotional response to always side with him. It's like it somehow talks to the deepest part of being a human and brings out that sort of empathy and that love and courage and interest. It's mostly a wordless story tale as well, which is even more impressive to me. because it creates a story, creates a picture of a world that is interesting to watch. I like it a lot. I like that it's in space. I like that there's a cute robot love story. It has everything that I like in a movie. So I think that officially Wally is my favorite Pixar movie. And that is it, folks. I hope you enjoyed going on this journey with me. I'm thinking about possibly ranking all of the Pixar short films next, just because I really like those. But tell me what you would like to see next in the comments. Thanks so much, guys. Have a nice day. Peace.